Romans 15:4 says, "For whatever was written in earlier times was written for our instructions, so that through perseverance and the encouragement of the Scriptures we might have hope." Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 60-day reading plan, today's reading is Romans 15, and I encourage you to read that passage. Well, beginning in the 1850s here in the United States, there were two camps in Protestant Christianity. The first camp was highly educated, and many of them coming from their study in Germany. The other camp may have done their seminary work in the United States, but they had not pursued a further degree in European seminaries. This division was seen mostly in how someone approached the Scriptures. Those who came from Germany tended to be highly rationalistic and doubted some of the history and the miracles of the Scriptures. Those who studied in the United States tended to have a view of the Scriptures that held them to be authoritative and without any error. It was this group who became the evangelists of the late 19th century and early 20th century. Now, the groups that hold that the Scriptures have errors and are simply good writings would bristle as they read the above words, because if you don't believe the history of the Scriptures, you cannot believe the rest of the Scriptures. If you don't believe in the miracles that God wrought in the Old Testament, you can't possibly believe in the miracles that Jesus wrought in the New Testament. Now, when Paul wrote in the above verses, Paul was not talking about the New Testament. He was talking about the Old Testament. These were the Scriptures of which he was speaking. He may not have known that what he was writing might ultimately be placed in what became the New Testament. The Old Testament was written for our perseverance and for our encouragement. The perseverance came about as we tried as well as we could to live a life that was pleasing to God. And the Christian walk is difficult. That doesn't mean it's severe. It doesn't mean that it's overwhelmingly hard. What it means is that it takes work to grow in Christ and to be the person that God would have us to be. By looking in the Old Testament, we see the great people of the Old Testament were simply human. They sinned. They had doubts. And sometimes they failed miserably, and yet God used all of them so that they might be an example for us to live. Now, one of the uniquenesses of the Scriptures is that we do not silvercoat our heroes. They are all like us. They're all sinners. They all struggle. But it is through Christ's life and the faith that we have in God and what He promised in the Old Testament that we might persevere and that our lives might change. Those changes being reflected by the application of the New Testament principles.